mean, we were just saying you guys are out in LA. I don't know why I thought you guys, am I wrong that you had some connection to Virginia? Or am I just crazy?
Maybe. I mean, I lived in Florida for 3 years. That's okay. I got family in Georgia, but no.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm just crazy. Maybe it's because I know you guys mentioned like the Neptunes as an influence. Maybe I just got that in my head.
Yeah. So most of our influence actually came from that pocket, like Missy and Timbaland and Neptunes. Like, there's just a lot of good talent. Pusha T, all those guys. Like, they have that like Virginia. I don't know, that DMV Virginia feel. So like, I don't know, we always gravitate to that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, man. I'm, people way smarter than me have spent a lot of time trying to figure out like what's in the water in Virginia and why that scene evolved like it did. I mean, the best I've ever come up with is I think it's probably a chip on your shoulder kind of thing. Where, because, nobody was checking for Virginia. I don't think anyone was trying to hear, these, like, you really need to be paying attention to Virginia, nobody was trying to hear that. So I feel like that breeds a certain, I don't know if it's competitiveness or just an ambition or a fire, whatever that is. But man, so let's talk about that era of like the Neptunes era, the Timbaland era. What age were you guys when they were really just going off and popping off? Like, where were you in your life when those like seminal Neptunes and Timbaland records were being made?
I say early high school. Like, like I distinctively remember exactly like where I was though when I first heard Noriega's Super Thug.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like, I just like when I think the first time I heard that beat, it was the first time I actually thought about production in general. Because before that, like, I was like, just songs were songs, whatever songs that I liked and I heard on the radio or like somebody showed me, they were just complete songs. Oh, I like that song, whatever. But I didn't really like articulate like the different like layer of production there is. Like, I was just like, oh, what the hell is happening with this song? Like, this beat is just so crazy to me, and that's kind of like what made me think about like like another space for music that I never really like understood until then. But I say 8th grade is around that time, 8th grade, and then going into like 9th, 10th, and 11th grade in high school, they just start sweeping. It was just Timbaland and Neptunes. They were just like running the block on everybody. Like it was game. It was game over for them.
Yeah. Well, had you been thinking about how music was made before that? Were you making music on your own at all?
Not then. I wasn't thinking about that then. I didn't think about it until around like, I didn't try it. I thought about it, but I didn't try anything until around 10th grade. But like around 8th and 9th grade is when I was like really starting to pay attention. Like, wow, this is how this person makes beats. Oh, this is Dr. Dre's style, or this is like so-and-so Just Blaze's style. And then I would like kind of like dissect it, but I didn't really try anything until I got like my first program. I got my first program at like Best Buy. It was Acid Loops.
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
Acid Loops was my first DAW that I ever tried out. It was very limited. I don't know what the hell I was doing, and it was simple as hell. Jared kind of has a similar story with like how he got started with you were on a PlayStation or something, right? Like,
it was Christmas. I was in Oklahoma. I had just moved from Okinawa to the States for the first time, so I wasn't really acclimated with Oklahoma, the state itself.
Wait, were you born in Okinawa?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
85. Moved maybe twice from Okinawa to the States and then back to Okinawa. My dad was in the Air Force for like 27 years, so I traveled a lot.
I got you.
But MTV Generator, that was the first thing that set me on production. My dad played in bands overseas for extra money, so I used to watch him set up his keyboards and watched my mom play the drums, and then he just haphazardly bought this game on PlayStation and was like, I'm a musician. You are kind of a kid musician. Take this. I started playing it and I was putting together like rave loops and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I stayed up till like 7 a.m. My dad came in the room and was like, what's going on here? I hit play and he was like, okay. And then from that point on, that just kept.
He wasn't even mad. Circling. I love that.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. And then it wasn't until high school with what Brandon was talking about. I got really into the Neptunes, and I didn't know what made them different. I just knew their beats sounded different compared to everybody else's.
Right.
And then, I went through the same journey Brandon went through: Fruity Loops, Acid Pro.
Fruity Loops before people start saying
before
FL
it was
Studio.
FL,
And then I, like a genius, decided to produce in Pro Tools, which was, I love Pro Tools to death. I've engineered for many years, but
let's talk about it, because that's how I started producing too, and that was not a great choice on my part.
The sound quality, great, but it's copy and paste, or getting in the MIDI. But back then I had keyboards. I was really into trance and hip hop, so my boy had a bunch of keyboards, and I'm like, I'll just set this up and work through DigiDesign.
Yeah. The E-move.
Yeah, E-move. It was a good lesson, though. It really helped me transition when I came here and started being a producer full time, and haphazardly interning for different studios. I was able to track different sessions and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. It was the same. I went to school for my degree just says music, but it was kind of like an audio recording engineering kind of degree. And it was the same thing. I was taught Pro Tools, and I guess at that point in my life, I just wasn't self-actualized enough to be like, maybe there's something else. So I was just like, oh, Pro Tools, this is what we do. And I just used that for everything for way too long, man. But wait, you said you were musical at a young age. Your dad already kind of knew you were musical when he gave you the game. So, what's like your earliest musical memory? Were you just always making music? Like, did you just hear it and you're like, I want to do that?
I would just play. I'd play on my dad's keyboards, or I'd go into the garage and practice on the drum set, because eventually that would transition me from elementary into band class. And, my dad just wanted me oriented in music in some capacity. And I would just play on like our clavinet downstairs, come up with ideas, drag them things over to MTV Generator and try to like video game put it in. That was like my earliest foundation as a producer.
How old were you when you were doing the PlayStation production?
Yeah, it'd be like maybe 98, 96.
Like 13.
Yeah, 13.
Yeah.
12, 13,
Right in those formative years, man. That's so cool. And you said your dad was musical too? He was playing in bands?
Yeah, so he played, he went to the Air Force Academy for a little while, and he was a radio DJ there at that college. And he always had an affinity for keyboards. He played in church. My mom was a drummer in marching band, but she kind of carried that into her adulthood too. So when they got over to Okinawa, living on a military salary at that time, it's not a lot of money. So they formed a band together. And then they traveled Okinawa itself on the bases and off base to play shows.
Oh shit! They would actually like kind of do a little tours.
Yeah, little mini tours, nothing crazy. Just playing like Keith Sweat and Aaliyah. It was like a cover band, and I'd be in the crowd just watching them play. I had to sit there and watch them rehearse at home, and then at the at Chilling, they called it, like the NCO club. From that point on, I was like, okay, well, these guys play music. I guess if they're telling me to go practice, I should go practice.
Right. Otherwise, well, and that's got to plant a seed too, right? To see not just adults, but it's your parents kind of normalizing that from a young age.
Yeah, it really helped out. Brandon has a similar thing. I feel like at least in our culture, in some capacity, we go to church and end up playing some church or being in the choir.
Yeah, was church music kind of some of the first music you really remember, like having that sort of like real impact on you?
That was the biggest thing. Like that's where we kind of connected just as a duo. We both grew up in church. We both grew up playing drums in church. So that's kind of like I played drums for my church. I went, I had band in school and everything, but it was like when you got to church, you really got to like do your thing and like experiment with some stuff. And that's kind of like where it kicked off a lot of, the things that started the whole project was like church. Like the great musicians that I've always seen, they always came from church for some reason. It's like they're the best, and you're just like you've never heard of this person. They don't have a number one hit. They're not on Spotify with millions of plays, but they're in this small little church and they shred. Like they can they completely just annihilate the competition, but you just never heard of them. But they're in a tiny church. And
there's something beautiful about that, man. And I don't know where you guys are at with church in your adult lives, but there's something about like not trying, if you have that talent and you have that passion for music, there's something beautiful about just being like, no, I'm gonna use it like right here where I'm at. Like I'm not trying to be a star. I'm not trying to be famous or be rich. Like this is just, I have this talent and I use it for this purpose. I don't know. I think that's a really respectable thing, man. I feel like that's another part of the whole gospel church music angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of, remember the movie Sister Act?
Yeah.
Sister Act 2. Sister Act 2, the one with Lauryn Hill. And there's a scene where, Lauryn Hill, she like walks in and she, the other nun sees Lauryn Hill practicing with another girl, and they're doing like, this song together. And Lauryn Hill's like, she's like, complimenting the other girl, like, yeah, you can really take it somewhere. Like, I love, your voice is just, you can really be somebody. And then the other girl, she like pats it down and she's like, no, this is for church. Like,
right. Man.
Like, this is for church, like, and it's kind of like, Lauryn Hill, she has this big ambition. She wants to be big, but it's like the other girl, she's just as talented, but she has a more reserved like approach to it. And she's, this is just what I do here. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
So I respect it though.
That's a good Sister Act 2 is a good pull, man. I haven't seen that movie in probably 20 years.
Wait a minute.
Shout out Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, right. I mean, shout out Lauryn Hill too. You want to talk about kind of just a wild career that defies categorization. She's right up there, man. Before we kind of move on in the timeline, I just wanted to, Jared, growing up in Okinawa on a military base, I think that's really interesting and unique as well. How old were you when you left there? Like, do you have memories of the base of Okinawa itself, like while you were growing up?
Yeah. So I was born on a naval base. It's right near the Marine base that's out there. I think it's Camp Foster. And then I lived on Kadena Air Force Base, which is a bigger base with airfields, everything like that. I mean, my life was pretty normal on base. You just do what a normal kid does, except there's, less danger or rules. So I'm like, a 5-year-old, 6 to 7 walking to school because I'm on a military base.
Right.
I'm just walking with my little brother. There was a lot of activities. I can tell you that much. We did a lot of camping. We went to Sega World. We went to the beach a lot. There was also a lot of kind of memorial sites for the battle that went on in Okinawa. So you're learning a lot about that history and making sure that you're respecting the culture and things of that nature. But outside of that, I chilled, man. I lived in Chibana, which is there's a bridge that attaches it from the main base. It's a smaller neighborhood. There was a Japanese military base that was right next to it.
Oh, wow.
So I'd ride my bike to the playground and I'd be like playing ball and there'd be Japanese helicopters just taking off like 10 feet away from me. And I'm like, oh, snap. I don't know if I'm supposed to be over here, but I'm just going to hang out.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, man. I mean, because of course, if you're born somewhere, you grow up somewhere, it's just normal to you. Was it a bit of a shocking moment when you moved away?
It was 100% shocking. I'd visited New Mexico, and then my family in Colorado, my mom's parents. And I was in the youth center the day that my dad came in and told me that we were moving, and he said, we're going to Oklahoma. And, at the time it was Okinawa, Oklahoma. So I'm like, all right, cool.
Sounds about the same. Yeah.
That's another island. We'll just go over there. We touched down. I'm like, just fields and churches and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, where the hell am I, man? What happened? Where's the water? Like, it's country as hell out here. We ended up going through a tornado. That's a whole nother story.
Shit.
But I miss Okinawa. I want to go back. One of my dreams is to go back there and at least play a show or get a place. It's completely different in a sense from mainland Japan because it has its own culture, its own style of, or dialect of Japanese. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, have you guys gotten to go either personally or as like for music? Have you been to Japan?
No, that's been on that's been on the list. Like we've been wanting to play Japan for a while and other parts of Asia. Like it's just been one of the things that we really want to do, but it hasn't happened yet. So hopefully soon.
Yeah.
To get out there.
Absolutely.
And I love how they like really respect the culture, really respect arts in general. Like they hold it in a high regard. So I think it'll be fun once we get out there.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. I feel like Japanese people, it's not only, we always talk about respect when we talk about Japanese culture. It's, it's a very respectful culture, but there's something about they elevate art and music to this level where they make it cool. This is my theory. You tell me if you agree, but it's almost like they make it cool to be a fan of something, like just a straight up fan. Like no pretense. It's just like, this is my shit. I'm into it. Like I got all the, I got all the albums, I got all the toys, whatever it is. Like, and it's cool in that way that I feel like American culture, it's like, you're not supposed to let on if you like something,
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Well, it's like that hipster, like American, we could be a little bit hipster when it comes to stuff like that. Where it's like, well, I'm just, I'm too cool for any of this, but like, yeah, if you genuinely like something, I would assume like over there, this is just like, it's okay. Like, go ahead, be a big fan and support it. And like, no one's judging you for it.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah, it's a reserved culture has a history of its own culture. As Japanese people, as Americans, it's kind of a melting pot. And we're also kind of the entertainment capital of the world. So you have many different judgmental things going on, egos, yada, 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 so on and so forth. It can really dictate a person's decision musically, at least from a fan's perspective.
I think like in America, one thing I don't really like is how quickly we are to move on to other things. And it's just like a constant pump and dump, like when it comes to art, and we don't look at it as art. We look at it as entertainment.
Yeah.
And I feel like other countries, like I think they actually, because they have so much history and they have their own culture that's tied to centuries of history, they're able to still like tap in and respect, art from different lanes. But like America, sometimes I feel like we can be a little bit too like, just too moving on to the new and like we disregard a lot of the stuff.
Oh, nobody does their homework, Nobody does their homework. Nobody like there's no, I mean, maybe there's respect for history of culture, but no one's really looking into it, And I'm as guilty as anybody else. Like I'm not trying to be on a high horse about it.
Right.
But it's interesting you said that though, because it made me think about, I mean, we all work in electronic music, which, I mean, that has its own problems of disposable music and, trends and fads just coming and going all the time. And I think in America, it's been made even harder, I think, doing what we do with, streaming platforms and the speed of everything, a million songs being released every week. A song comes and goes. It's like it never even existed in weird ways. But you just made me think about something I never thought about, which is I wonder if musicians in other countries are experiencing it the same way we are. Like, take Japan or take some other country. Like, are those issues happening in the same way? Or is the culture different enough that they can, still sort of process things at like more of a human pace, I guess?
Right. I mean,
I have no idea.
That's a really good question. I would probably assume that it's not to the same degree as America. If that is happening, it probably isn't to the same degree. But it's a really good question. Are they experiencing the same sort of, change with the advent of streaming and all that?
Yeah. And I mean, I have no idea. It's just, you literally I had never had that thought before. But wait, Brandon, where are you from originally? Like, where did you grow up?
I'm actually from Los Angeles. So I was born here, but I pretty much grew up all over Southern California. Like I moved to, Long Beach, to the Inland Empire, to the High Desert, to San Diego, and, different parts of Southern California. But I pretty much lived here my whole life.
Well, what were you moving around for? What'd your folks do?
It's just like all over the place. Like we had like a really rough childhood. Like it was just a weird time in our family's life, and different job opportunities and different things just happened. So it was kind of like you just pick up and you make new friends. And I was always the new kid at school. I got used to being the new kid.
Was that tough? I mean, to always kind of be uprooting at a young age?
It was, but it kind of makes you, over time, it makes you a little bit more resilient. Being able to adapt is a really important thing. And even, translating that to music, being able to adapt is like one of the best things. Not necessarily like, selling yourself out or changing to fit something. It's just more, being fluid. And that's why we quote Bruce Lee a lot with our, like, we have this like quote that we always reference: be shapeless, formless, like water, which is Bruce Lee's like martial arts, like approach to being fluid. But, that whole thing, like, that stuck with me, since I was a child, being able to, adapt to different scenarios and just rolling with it. And I think it's been working out.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, what you said about being fluid, being water, all that, I think you could absolutely apply that to the kind of music you guys make. Right. And I feel like that's a theme we can return to a couple times in this conversation. But you did just make me think, you were saying, you were always the new kid. And like, what kind of a kid were you? Were you drawn to music right away? Did you play sports? What was it?
Yeah, I was drawn to music right away. I did play sports though, but like music was like, I was already performing. Low key, I used to be like a kid rapper.
Oh, yeah.
But it was cool though, because I was like I had shows.
Oh, okay.
I was doing shows. I was always known for being like a really great dancer back in the day when I was a kid. So there was this girl, like a girl rapper, but she was like a college age. She was, maybe in her 20s, and she was putting together this hip hop group, this early 90s like hip hop group. And my mom brought me up to her job, and the girl wanted to see me dance and, do some stuff. And so like, she let me do it, and I started performing. And then she was like, all right, I want you to be part of my group. I'm only like in third grade. I'm in third grade. And they got me, like, they started writing my raps for me and stuff. And I would just perform like with them. I would tour like around LA area. And then eventually I got picked up on this like TV, like hip hop TV talent show thing that used to air in LA every week. So literally every week in third grade, like every Friday, I would have to leave school early and go record these performances, and I have to like rap and sing. And that's kind of like where it was for me. I went to like this little music academy school when I was really young in Pomona, California. And they kind of like had me do productions and stuff.
Okay.
But
so
yeah,
you were on stage. You were loving being on stage at a young age.
I was on stage. Yeah, I was performing at a very young age. So yeah, performing was just a big part of me. And then as I got older, I got into more sports. And it's kind of weird though. It's like you'll start dabbling in other things, but if music was your calling, it always sucks you back. It just brings you, it keeps tugging you, and it just keeps, you can't get away from it. Even if you're just like, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go into the business world. Maybe I'll do some corporate stuff. Maybe, I got into the insurance industry as an adult, and same thing. It's like music. It's like, nope, come back.
Yeah.
Bring your ass back.
Oh yeah, man. I relate to that really strongly. I was very similar where, yeah, it was just, for me, it was I never felt like I really had a choice. You know what I mean?
Right.
For better or for worse, there was just nothing else that made me, there's nothing else I wanted to do. That's the simplest way I could put it. Like I almost, do you guys ever get this way? I would almost get jealous of some of my friends who, like I consider myself to be I'm smart enough. I'm capable enough. I could have done other stuff. And then a bunch of my friends, I had smart friends, but a lot of them, it seemed like, they could kind of just do one of like 6 things. And they were just like, yeah, this seems to be going pretty well. So I'll just do this because it's what's working. And I was always jealous of that because I was just like, man, like, I mean, I could do that too, but there's only one thing I want to do.
Right.
True.
Well, yeah, it's like sometimes I will get jealous because things seem more simple for other people, like how they like plan their life or what lane it seems simple, and I'm just like trying to compare my shit, and I'm like, whoa, this is different. Like I'm gonna have to do, a different thing here with my life. But
it's not a clear weird path. It's not a paved road.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like being an entrepreneur. You don't have a clear path. As a musician, you're an entrepreneur. Essentially, you have a product. It's not tested. It's not a tested thing that's like, oh yeah, this is going to work for sure.
Yeah.
And you like put it together. I know we don't traditionally look at it that way. Like
no, but you're spot on, man. And I think that's actually a great way to talk about the music you guys make together as well, because there's levels to that idea you just said. Because it's not only that you're trying to make a go of it as a musician and charting these uncharted waters, but even in that, I think the music you guys make defies categorization even in our little niche, So it's one of those things where, and I guess this is sort of a classic entrepreneur thing you always hear, but it's, did you feel, or do you still feel, did you ever feel that way of like, well, we just have to, nobody's going to believe in this until we just do it ourselves, until we prove it, Because I feel like what you guys are doing, there's not much of a precedent for it in modern electronic music.
Yeah, I think it's for my perspective, we've been in the game since, I don't know how long. We started in 2007, 2008. We've always had an open, eclectic ear for music. And when we came into whatever genre it was at the time, it was mixed in with UK, mixed in at the LA scene. You got UK garage, future trap, whatever it was called back then, experimental hip hop. All that was just fused together. And then we were listening to indie bands, Little Dragon, Tori Moi. And that kind of gave us an idea of like, oh, why don't we just take this hip hop stuff we've been doing and mix it with some of these elements over here and then kind of feed that into the line and see where that goes.
Right. I think like when we first got in like 2007, 2008, it was just electro house. Everyone was like
Bloghouse
in that phase.
Mm-hmm.
Bloghouse years. Yeah. I mean, we were still into like trance and some of the like other house stuff that we knew about, but the wave was all in the Bloghouse stuff, and like Justice and Mastercraft, and everybody was running to them. But and that really inspired us too. But around like what Jerry was saying, like when we started discovering around, I want to say like 2012, 2011, 2010, Tori Moa, Little Dragon, different like Star Slinger, different like producers and bands that had a different approach to electronic music that we were like seeing. And we were seeing that like, okay, well, these guys are bringing what they grew up on to the table and making this electronic music, using this as another like platform for something else. But we have to figure out like how we want to express ourselves and where we come from and get back to those roots where we come from and take that to the next level. And so that's what we tried to do. And even though it's not a lane that everyone, knew about, or, and people still don't really get like what lane that we belong to. Like, right. It's still like a constant challenge. Like, but we like that challenge. We like sort of not being in the groove with everyone else. We kind of like being a little bit on the cusp. Like you don't really understand exactly, and we like it. I don't know. It's just something.
Well, I mean,
something
I think
about it.
being on that path and not trying to be a part of sort of whatever the current scene is. I think that's how you get a long career, right? That's how you get the long-term rewards. I think it's easy to get distracted and go for the short-term rewards just because this shit is hard and it's stressful.
Right.
And, there's, to a certain extent, you want to fit in, you want to be accepted in the community or whatever. But yeah, man, that's something I try to tell people all the time is if you're trying to make music to fit in or to match something, that you already kind of lost the game there.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, you have to be extremely careful with what you're consuming and who you are surrounded by that like may shape your environment, like while you're trying to create that path. Like if you have the wrong people around you that are telling you to like follow the, the path that like everyone is rolling, that's going to hurt you. You have to choose for yourself, like what kind of music you want to make and how you want to be unique. Like that has to be at the forefront of your entire project, because we already have 1,000 of whoever, we already like, you need to bring something new to the table. And it's back to the whole business thing. That's what entrepreneurs do. They think of things that aren't there yet. Like,
right.
You have to bring something new to the table.
Yeah, that's the tough word. It's hard as hell. Yeah. It's hard as shit.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to talk about it, but yeah, that is the hardest thing to do. Well, so I mean, you were talking about, having the right people around you. I'm sure you guys have told this story before, but real quick, how did you meet once you were both in LA? How did you two come together?
So I had moved from Florida. I went to Florida to try to get into Full Sail. Didn't happen, so I just stayed there and studied. Yeah. And then my partner, my boy at the time, high school friends, we decided to plant our flag in California. And I lived out here for about a year and a half or so, and I ended up in Canoga Park. And we were still, like my crew at the time was still fetal. Like we didn't have no connects, no nothing. He was interning at a studio. I needed to get a job. Right. So I worked at Hollywood Video. For some reason, that thing shut down. It went out of business thanks to Netflix. So I transferred over.
Nobody knows
to
why.
Circuit City.
Shut down, yeah.
Circuit City was next. That was the easiest job for me to get while I was producing local rappers in that area. So I got to Circuit City. I met one of our good friends by the name of Nicholas Dew. He introduced me to Brandon. Like I brought him over to my crib, showed him the home studio that I had set up. We were goofing off, and Nick and Brandon were roommates at the time. Brandon came through, and we all just kind of formed this jam session for a couple months of us just making whatever version of electronic music that we could make.
Right.
Yeah.
We take it from there.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the whole, it's weird that these two huge corporations they were instrumental in bringing this whole together, and they don't exist anymore. Because when we tell this story about Circuit City, people are like, what the hell is that?
That's
like,
so funny. Yeah. That's true. Because if you're under a certain age, you're not even going to know what Circuit City is.
Facts, man.
Right. So
Oh,
like some people, the story doesn't go, it goes over their head because, you know, they don't really even know what Circuit. And then Hollywood Video, we actually both worked at Hollywood Video.
Oh shit. Okay.
Not at the same place, but like I worked at Hollywood Video when I was in high school. And he worked there too. And we were sharing stories when we first met about like, oh, you worked there too, checking out the videos and all that. Yeah, yeah. And then also at that time when we first met, I was working in insurance. I was in the insurance game, and I was like, I don't know. I felt like I had a steady income and I was safe, and maybe I'll just write that out.
Yeah. You get comfortable, man. I mean, I had an office job for a few years, and it's, you know, there's, and I'm not even kind of talking shit about it. Like there's a beauty in being comfortable and being secure, you know, and it's hard to leave. It's scary to leave that.
It is. But yeah,
well, for you, I mean, were you thinking, so you have this job, you're somewhat comfortable, but it sounds like music was still a passion, even if you were looking at it as just a passion.
Yeah, music was just a passion, but I still didn't know anything about electronic music to begin with. And my production chops wasn't even up to par on anything else. I was still very small when it comes to producing. But it was more like I was trying to, you know, keep that secure career, but I didn't know I wanted to dedicate my whole life to that. I was looking at, well, what's the best this scenario could end up. I could be making, you know, $75,000 as an insurance agent for the rest of my life. Is that the move for me? Is that how I see the end of the story? You know, I always look at it like it's a story. Like my life is just this book that you're reading, like, okay, this is what it is. This is what he did. And I don't think like, you know, me at 20, I think I was like 22, you know, that was it for me. Like I would just become an insurance agent. It wasn't in the cards for me. And luckily around that same time, I met Jared and we started working on this stuff. And then he had a similar, he had already did the insurance thing before.
Oh, for real? So you guys kept crisscrossing jobs. That's crazy.
Yeah. I was in AAA in Heathrow, Florida. They had a main office. I worked at a dry cleaners there next to the office. It was a couple blocks down. And their management used to come in every day. And I was always nice and whatever. I'm working at a dry cleaner. I'm a kid. I'm just like, hey, what's up, man? So the manager came in. He was like, yo, you should come work over here. Don't work here. I was like, okay, cool. You know, come to find out, it was a little bit of affirmative action because the top manager was black and they needed a little more diversity. But I didn't care. I was like, I'm with it. I don't know nothing about insurance, but I will work hard.
Right.
So they gave me the whole training course, gave me a little cubicle. And right before we were getting ready to go to California, once my homie graduated, they were like, hey, we want to move you up. We want to get you a 401k. We want to get you on full time, like whatever salary nonsense. I was like, it could be nice. It's like you said, it could be nice. I have a little comfortability, stay in Florida, chill. And then I was like, I did not come out here for that. I came to do this music stuff. So deuces. Yeah. So I started all.
What was like the first, once you guys got together and you were making music together, what was the first, do you remember like the first time you thought like, hey, this might be something, like we might be able to do something with this. We might be able to take this somewhere.
Remixes? Did we start on remixes first?
Remixes, yeah. We started doing a bunch of remixes and we started getting traction off of it.
Hype Machine, bunch of blogs.
Yeah, this is Hype Machine days. Everyone was fighting for the number one Hype Machine.
Yeah.
And we got I think we did some old, like we did a couple bands and we did some pop acts. And I mean, when we look back at it and we like play those records and we laugh.
Of course.
How goofy they kind of ended up sounding. But at the time, people liked them and people were like, there was a couple of DJs hitting us up like, oh, send me that track. And we were like, okay. Like, let's see where this goes. And people, we just got immediately within 6 months of us starting Vindata as a thing, we started getting some sort of attention. And it wasn't anything big, but it was some sort of feedback where like, okay, there's someone out there that may like this music. We might have something. Yeah. So
sometimes that's all it takes, man. I feel like sometimes you just need, one or two people, like
right.
strangers, being like, "This is good. I like this."
Right.
Because you're sitting there with the song for so long, especially if you're brand new. You've just been cranking away with no regard, and like, you might not have a mentor or anything, and then you put it out. Two people get a view. You're like, oh snap! Okay, I did it.
Right.
You rip that Band-Aid off.
Right.
And then after a while, you see those numbers trickle up, and you're like, okay, this could do something. Especially if you're trying to do it as a career.
Yeah,
it means the most.
Of course. Sometimes you just it's just those couple voices of like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like there is something here. That means everything at the start, man. And I mean, so we've talked about like you guys are listening to all different kinds of music. You have all these different influences. Why electronic music? Why did you kind of land in the lane you landed in? Was it just sort of the time period? Because there was this like crazy energy around that music at that time. Like if you think back, like why do you think you ended up in the lane you ended up in?
Yeah, I think it was
Go ahead.
Like that 2007, between like 2006, 2007, it was just, we can actually even hear it in the pop music that was out.
Yeah.
There was like, listening to like Madonna and hearing like, like the stuff that like on the confessions on the dance floor stuff. I was like, oh wow, this is like, I'm hearing dance music here. Obviously we knew like of Daft Punk and all the greats, we already knew about that, but it was just something that was going on with the sound. Everything just sounds so interesting. And we got in the rave scene. And then we looked at ourselves too. We're not rappers. We're not singers. How do we fit in with production in the music space? Like, how do we become artists? In electronic music, it was just, wow. Like you could just DJ and play your productions and you can just be be respected as an actual musician, as an artist in this lane versus the other lanes where you're just, they never even heard of you,
and it takes so long. Yeah. I'd been producing for local artists and doing submission work for almost 2 years. I lived with an A&R at a major label, and I found the difference. I saw that, hip hop and pop and electronic, this mix over here that was happening, they allow you to be your own entity, so to speak. If I'm a producer or an artist, all I gotta do is upload my music, be in the scene, yada, yada, yada. In the commercial world, you gotta go through the ladders and the ladders. When I met Nick, one of our other mutual friends, they were already running within the rave scene in like Montbello out here in LA and like doing their own DJ stuff. And they ran Arena nightclub. So me and Brandon were both in the thick of, the Demac era and all that stuff that was happening in LA with AM and everybody else.
Banana Split, all that.
Yep. Yeah. And that kind of transitioned us into like, by that time we were already working on songs full time, but then we really realized like, oh snap, this could be a, career choice. Right. And I don't have to keep submitting to record labels. And,
right. Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. Cause you can do it not just independently, but you don't need somebody else's say so, at least at the start. Right.
Right.
Yeah. How did it evolve to, I'm sort of skipping ahead a little bit, but the Ausla connection, because I think when you guys started working with Ausla, I think I had heard your music before, but that was when I really started, just following everything you were doing and really like locking into what you guys were putting out there. How did you get connected with Sonny, with Skrillex and the whole Ausla team?
So we actually did a show in LA for it was like a cymbals showcase with us and Sweater Beats, Castle, Lindsay Lohan.
Wow,
it was like a nice little thing, like back in 2014.
Man, shout out to Barrett, shout out to Castle, man, Cymbals, all that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about a lot of those names in a while. You just took me back.
Yeah. So we did a little a show for that, and it was crazy because a bunch of the bass scene kids like showed up, and some heavy hitters, 12th Planet came through, and the Smog family came through to show support, and Sonny came through, and actually Sonny like pulled Jared aside like after while we were up there. I don't know, Jared, you want to hop in? And
yeah, Nick, it goes back again. I keep bringing up my boy, but we used because of them DJing in Montbello, he used to run into Skrill DJing back in his early rave days with everybody else. When we got to Sound Nightclub, we were, playing our regular set. Nick walks up to me. He's like, yo, Skrill just walked in. I'm like, what the? No, he didn't. I look over and he's just walking in with one security guard. I'm like, all right, okay, cool. And, Nick walks over to him. He's like, hey, what's up, dog? Whoopity whoop. And then he's like, yo, I want to meet those two guys. And he's like, yo, it's my niggas. Like, he brought him over backstage and he was just like, yo, I've been listening to your song the last, 2 weeks. Whoopity whoop, you guys are something different. You kind of like what's so not, but not. Yeah, you're a different variation. You have the same kind of vibe. I love your steez. Get my number. Let's chop it up. I really want to build a relationship. And then from that point on, I'm working at the studio. We're just texting, casually trying to get information and fill out the vibe. And he's shooting the shit.
He basically he like DM'd later on a week or two ago. He DM'd us on Twitter like, yo, bro, like you want to do a remix and you want I got this other stuff going. And we're just like, yeah, we'll do whatever. Yeah. And then he eventually asked us to come. I think Coachella was coming up around that time, and he had us open up for him at one of the LED pool parties that he was doing. So we got out there and we did our set, and he came through, and he was like, yo, he just ran up to us like, yo, like we were already brothers. Right. Like we kind of didn't that whole thing, like we all hugging each other and stuff. And he's like, yo, he's like, what are you guys doing for touring? And at the time we still had day jobs. Like we were like, we had. You're
just trying to play it cool. Yeah. You're like, we're doing some here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, we ain't doing shit for touring. Like, and I'm like, yo, we still got day jobs. He's like, what's your day job? And I was like, shit. Like, I don't want to tell this dude I'm an insurance agent. I'm like, shit. Yeah, you don't want to know, bro. He's like, what is it? I'm like, I do insurance. He's like, all right, that's cool, man. All right. He's like, yo, well, I'm putting together my fall tour right now. I want y'all to come on the road with me. Like, I want to do a bunch of small shows, maybe do some college stuff. I want y'all out here with me. I want you on the fall tour. And I was like, whoa. Like, me and Jared were just bugging out. And, we did like a toast. And ever since then, like, he just showed us mad love. And we went on tour with him later on that fall. As soon as we got back from tour, the day jobs were gone. Yeah. we were like, okay. We were like, okay, this is a sign that all of this work, because up until this point we had already been a group for years now, and we were just still looking for a good break, holding in, staying on top of it, but we didn't expect that to happen. And after the tour, sat down with the label, they wanted to do a project with us, and they gave us the support that we needed, and we kind of like kicked it off from there. And he's just always been a good homie. He's a really humble dude. But he told us, like, even before we signed the deal with Alza, we were telling the story before, but while we were on tour, on that fall tour, we were in Tampa, and DJ Snake came through, and it was like DJ Snake, GTA, Chami, us, Skrill, and the guys that were running the promoter guys that were running the event, they wanted to take us. They were begging us to take us to a Tampa strip club, and we're just like, we don't really do strip clubs like that. It's not like our style. Like we keep it, and we get out there, and we eventually go, and there's women all around, money getting thrown and stuff, and in the midst of all this, Skrill is having a one-on-one heartfelt conversation with us about being true artists and like, do what you want to do. Like, I really believe in your music. When I listen to it, I hear the musicality in it. I hear your emotion in all your songs. Keep doing that. He gave us like a really heartfelt,
I love
talk.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it was just so weird
in the middle of the Tampa strip club.
Yeah. It was juxtaposing this
that's where the deals get done, man. That's where the deals get done.
Yeah.
That's right.
DJ Snake is walking around. He has like a stack.
The cell phone of money.
The cell phone, yeah. And I'm just, I don't know. I have nothing but respect for the brother Skrill. He's really he's done his thing, and his music has evolved to a level that's just like, wow, like
it's untouchable, man. It's really, it really is. There's very few people who I would say are just untouchable on another level. Like there's tons of talented people. There's tons of excellent producers. Tons of people who I would say are better producers than I am. But most of those people, I feel like if I worked hard enough, I could do what they're doing. Skrillex, there's no way. I don't know what he does. It's different.
Right.
It's I don't know what that is. And you guys ended up working with him, right? Had you been, because that song you did with him, Favor, that came out years later. Did it take you that long to actually get in the studio and work on stuff with him? Or had you been working kind of on and off for a while?
We did our first session we did was during that Sound nightclub time. We ended up going down to what was it? 12th Danny United.
Danny United's place.
Oh, the compound.
Yeah, the compound. They were goofing off in the back, and I've known John Daz 12 for a little bit because my connection with the guys I work with used to pop by the studio every once in a while, and he just pulled us in and was like, "Yo, my job,
I'm working some."
Yeah, and I'm like, man, I don't even use Ableton. This is all I'm thinking in my head, but Brandon was using it. I could play, so we just got in. I'm sure that track is on 12's computer somewhere, but it's whatever we laid down was trash. I just don't put that out there. But it was nice to have a session with, real dance artists and especially a black one too, nonetheless.
Of course.
And
right.
I don't know if did we do anything else with it? I feel like we got it. We may have goofed off a couple times.
Yeah, we did a couple of things. We worked on when we were doing the track now, we worked with him on that. And he's always like popped into the studio and like, yo, what you guys going on? And, when we were putting the album together, not the album, but the EP that we had before, he would pop in and go over it and skim through what we had like laid out. And he's just, he's always tried to include us on other projects too. Like he would hit us up even when he was working on other people's shit. And he would be like, yo, I'm working on this, there's an album coming up and they need producers. Just letting you guys know, send some tracks in and hopefully, you can get a placement somewhere. And he's always been really supportive with like a lot of his homies with stuff like that. So,
right.
Yeah. No, he's a genuine dude, man. That's like more so and it's crazy for how huge he is. It's like he's bigger than everybody, and somehow he's also more genuine than everybody.
Right.
I feel like that never happens.
It never happens.
He's really humble. He's a really humble guy. And that's why I said, like, back to the strip club thing, it was just so weird because like that's not in his element, and that's not in our element either. And so it's just funny seeing stuff like that. But yeah, he's just a really down to earth guy, even for how big he is and how many people he knows. The first time I realized how big he really was is that first year that we ended up meeting him. And after that Coachella show, he threw a party. He often throws these parties across, like right across the street from the Coachella fields. And it was like a small little thing, but I remember Dave Chappelle was there, and it was like Dave Chappelle, Martin Garrix, and I think like Paris Hilton might have been there.
Yeah, sure. Throw Paris Hilton in, yeah.
Yeah, like he was like, he introed us to like Martin Garrix. He was like, oh yeah, these are the guys I was telling you about, blah blah blah. And I'm like, hey, nice meeting you. And he's like, yeah, these guys are cool. And then he's like, let's do a toast. And the bartender started pouring us drinks, and we were about to do a toast. And Dave Chappelle, we can hear him like walking up, and he's like, Dave, come on, come drink with us. And Dave's like, I ain't doing no shots, man. Skrillex, I ain't doing no shots. Like, he's doing the whole thing. I'm about to bust up laughing. Like, I'm just like trying to hold it together. And I'm still kind of like in awe, because Dave Chappelle is like one of my heroes. Like, he's like one of my favorite. He is my favorite comedian.
Yeah.
And I just remember like we just took a shot together, and I was like, this is like, how is this happening? Just like Skrill is cool with Dave Chappelle.
Right.
and I got to like piggyback off of this. I'm like, this is incredible. I love, like, and he just kept it real. Like, I think that's why people gravitate to him. He just keeps it real.
Yeah, he definitely made the transition easier, because like Brandon said, I mean, all of us, we all had jobs within our careers. So me and Brandon going into this, and then me being an engineer somewhat in a professional environment, we kind of took the professionalism with us to, shows and events. And he really made it lax. He's like, yo, y'all, you guys are fucking artists. Have fun, chill. We went to Amsterdam to do, what was the thing? ADE?
ADE. We did ADE in Amsterdam. Yeah.
And at the time, obviously, we're still up and coming. We didn't have a lot of cash flow coming in. And he was like, oh, how long are you guys going to be here? Like, oh, we're here for, one night.
Just for a day. Yeah. One night. Yeah.
He was like, nah, fuck that. Like, we're going to have you here for like 3-4 days. You got to go see the city, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
tabs on us.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, snap. I've never had anybody do that before. I'm like, oh, shit, okay.
Yeah, he just paid for like our extended Amsterdam vacation.
Like
we were just supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, I love that, man, because that's how it should be done realistically. Like, he'd been playing in bands since he was 16. He's been sleeping on couches since he was a kid. Like, we all come from that at some point, Right. And that's beautiful, giving back like that. I love that, just alleviating some of that stress. And because like take Skrillex out of it, take you guys out of it, just say there's a bigger artist, smaller artist. If you do something for that smaller artist, that might be the space they needed to create something new, or to try something, try something different. All that's beautiful, man. I love all of that. And how did you guys find, once you got into that lifestyle a little bit for yourselves? I mean, heavy touring, going out, playing shows every night, maybe letting loose a little bit, partying a little more. I mean, did that lifestyle agree with you? Was it a fun period of kind of just like whirlwind, going out, making music, coming home, going out again? Did you enjoy that? Did you find a balance with it? Where did it kind of land in your life?
I think we enjoyed it. It was fun. I love touring. I love performing, but it comes with its costs, just like anything else. It can be taxing on your body. You miss your family, and I think too, creatively, and that's why I feel like with the pandemic, it's actually been a blessing too. Creatively, it could shape the type of music that you're making if you're on the road all the time and you're kind of just like making music for those reactions. You could end up making music for just reactions.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes you can slip a little bit if you're out there doing that and you're just used to those clever reactions. But with the pandemic, people ask like, well, how has it affected you creatively? And I say that it's actually been good. It's been good to slow things down a bit and reflect, and we can make more meaningful music that connect with people who aren't ready to get their heads blown off with a crazy drop. We can touch them in a way that really, really like resonates versus, doing the other stuff. But it's still fun to tour. We love touring, but you want to keep that balance going.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting when I think about, before we got on this call, I was trying to think of, how I would define your music or words I would use to talk about the kind of music you guys make. And two words that came to mind, you were talking about making music for reactions versus kind of, being more, I don't know what it is, more true to yourself or whatever those influences are. And to me, two words I thought about were detail and restraint. And you tell me if you agree with me or not, but to me, like, I was listening to some of the new stuff you've been putting out, some of the Monstercat singles, and there's all these little details in there that I think, the same way you were talking about listening to Super Thug at the beginning of this conversation and being like, oh, what is that little like clap in the background or whatever? To me, that's something you guys do really well, that there's always different layers, little touches that all come together to build kind of a much bigger vibe. And then with restraint, talking about, I feel like you guys know how to make an EDM song, right? It's like there's a buildup, there's a drop, all of that. But for me, so much of your music, and again, don't let me put words in your mouth. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But so much of your music, it's like you use those structures, but then right when you get to the part where I think I know what's going to happen, it's like, oh, they're building up to this big drop, or, oh, because they put this section here, I know what's coming next. You always pull it back a little bit, or always go a little bit of a different direction in a really interesting way. And I don't know what question I'm asking here, but do you agree? Does that sound right?
Damn, you described that better than we could.
Yeah, on that part where you're feeling that build, we get to that level within the song. We'll be like, oh, this is heading in a land we don't need to be traveling in. Let's try to change this up a little bit. Like the same reactions people get, we're feeling those reactions and naturally going, oh, okay, we know what this is going to sound like in 5 minutes if we keep going this route. Let's try to start from the beginning and get this different. That takes experience as well, too.
Yeah.
It's crazy, though, too, because it's always like, you always know when that moment happens, when it does connect. And it's like, yeah, you did the what is expected. Like, you did that part, but you also did something else, and they don't sound like two separate songs. They actually connect, they vibe with each other. It's working. And there's that moment in the car, like you're playing in the car and you're just like, okay, it's working here. It's working in the studio. It's working in the car. It's working everywhere else. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is it. This is the vibe. Like, I feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
But when you're making this hip-hop did help too. Hip-hop helped us, because that gives you some, at least with the mixing and the sound selection, we can have the same impact of a, droppable song without actually ripping your face off. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it connects differently too. I think when you have those other influences, that's something I wish more producers in dance music did, was like look outside of dance music a little more.
Right. We always do that. Yeah.
Because there's so many different ways to connect with people, right? And to make people move and to make people have some kind of feeling or emotion. And I think, just like you were saying, everybody goes on tour. You see everybody at these festivals get these bigger and bigger reactions. And I think a lot of people end up just competing to try to get, I'm just going to get like a 2% bigger reaction than that person. And the point of the music, like, you could get so many different kinds of reactions. You could get, a stronger reaction in a different way. Yeah, I don't know. I like the way you guys do it. It feels very refreshing. And I guess what I'm asking is, like, say you sit down to write a song, you have all these different influences, you can approach it in a lot of different ways, you make a lot of different sounds. How does it start? Do you guys have like a process at this point?
It goes differently now because of the pandemic.
Well,
in the past, we were in the studio 15 hours a day, just working on the album and working on extra songs. And some sessions would be us just coming out the gate like, hey, what do you feel like making? And I'm like, well, I feel like, we go back and forth, and then we'll go, all right, let's just try that. And then we'll spend another 2 days working on stuff we actually need to work on. And that's just honing in our, previous sound that we've been building over time. We always try to come back to our main elements that we use while gaining a reference from the outside. It keeps the the foundation concrete and let's experiment up here.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. When you say the main elements, like what are those elements? Are there certain things or certain concepts that you feel kind of define what you do?
I mean, as long as it touches on our influences. So, we're obviously going to use our hip hop influence when it comes to our drum programming. That's just going to be like the catalyst for everything, with a lot of our drums and rhythm and stuff like that. And, chords, we always love R&B chords, or we like, jazzy chords or neo soul stuff. We love stuff like that. And, if it has like some sort of indie rock, indie vibe to it, we like to incorporate, as long as we're touching all those bases, that feels like Vindata to us. Like we kind of, and we don't really know, sometimes we don't know exactly what it is until it happens. Like, okay, this feels like Vindata. And it'll be like one sound that changes. It's like, oh, this one sound makes it not sound like Vindata, or this one sound makes it sound like Vindata. So it's really weird. It changes. We just know when we know, like, this is us. And if we're not there yet, this is someone else. So we need to get there. Yeah.
Or save that beat to submit it to somebody else so they can write to you. So,
let's pitch that to someone.
Yeah. Right.
There's no,
yeah. Are you guys still actively producing for other people as well right now?
I currently am. I've been doing that most of my career. Like I do a lot of rock bandy program, pop punk, I guess you could say. I used to work for Joel and Benji Madden of the Charlotte. I worked for them for about 7 to 8 years just as an in-house producer. And my connects from them traveled, I think 2017, 18. That kind of just traveled along with the rest of mine. So it was kind of like my side hustle thing. So I'm working on different rock bands and a couple of hip hop artists here and there.
Oh, that's nice, man. That's like, it's nice you get to work on a variety of stuff too. I feel like that's gotta help with the inspiration and, and then make it more fun when you're coming in to work on your own shit, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have other stuff like other R&B acts and like an indie pop act that we're producing, like side produced stuff. But yeah, it's all good. It just sharpens your chops, keeps you fresh, and you learn stuff that you could translate later on to your other projects. So it's all good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably a good way to talk about the album you guys got coming up, right? Which is coming out on Monstercat, what, a couple months? A month? When is that coming out?
June.
In June. Okay. Yeah. And why an album? Why now? Like what? Because you guys took a little break sort of before that, right? Like let's talk through that. Like what led you to take some time off, and then what led you to come back to make this album?
I mean, we were really going through it. Like when we started the album, we felt like it was just time. We've released singles and remixes and EPs, and we felt that we weren't fully expressing like what we wanted to. We needed more time to like really get it all out there and really show people what Vindata is all about. So we wanted to do something bigger, and we tried to dig deep and go back to what the true essence of Vindata really is. And it took a long process to get that going. And just a lot of changes, over the last 3 years, different people, changes there, a different mindset. We've grown a lot just as individuals and as musicians. So that kind of like, that was part of the whole process. A little bit of the hiatus is putting together the album and stepping back and reflecting on where we want to go. But also just like digging deep and growing and trying to, take things to the next level.
So, I mean, did you guys, just putting it together, was it like you had the thought, we're going to work on this album, but first we're going to take some time off? Or was it not?
We worked on the album. We started on albums eons ago.
A while ago.
Yeah, there was supposed to be an EP. We signed with Alza. We did our EP. We had owed them 2 more, I think. And we curate our songs in that fashion too. It helps it be more cohesive. That way we're not just randomly making hella shit everywhere. But we got to the part where we were like, oh, shoot, I don't know.
We could go bigger.
We had a little talk about it in, I think, 2016, of just like, let's start the process. Let's just start garnering all these songs. Up to that point, we had damn near 200, MP3s just sitting on our hard drives, but a lot of them weren't really album worthy. They were just records ready to go. So we got into Lemon Tree, which was Al's studio at the time. And, since we're artists on the label, they let us come through anytime. We rent that place out 15 hours a day, just trying to get the new songs that fit in with the first. I think we had 1 or 2 records, the Taylor joint and another song that we were kind of basing it off of. We just worked from there. You could take the rest.
No, we just, we really wanted to do something that like would have a big impact. And, we're also not singles guys. We don't really do like club banger single type. Like you can drop one single and then like that literally just blows everything up for the next year. Like we're not that type of artist. So, we really pride ourselves on doing, good bodies of work. Then you get the full feeling of what Vindata is. We've always had better luck with that. So when we would drop EPs, it was kind of like people really got us when we drop EPs. And then when we drop singles, they would like them, they're cool, but it's like, that's not our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is projects. Like give us a project, give us a goal. And we want to fill in that. So yeah.
And it's interesting that you're working with Monstercat now too. I love Monstercat, but I feel like you guys coming together, I wouldn't have predicted that. Like how did that happen?
Shout out to Sasha, Monstercat.
Oh yeah, I love Sasha, man.
Yeah, shout out to him. We were talking, and he's a good guy, and he's always like showed us love even before we, put this deal together. And we were just like, yo, let me shoot you this link and see what you think. And he was about it. And, he connected with Ori over at Monstercat and was like, yo, these guys got an album. It's really dope. So that's kind of how it came to be. And at first we didn't expect that at all either. Monstercat wasn't someone that we were already thinking that the album was going to go with, but I think it's a great opportunity for this type of music to reach ears that it normally wouldn't reach. If we would have went the path where, it was an expected type of label, or even if we would have dropped it independently, I think that the same people that would have heard it, they're like, yeah, I kind of expect this, but I think we're getting such good reactions on just these last 3 singles that we dropped. I think it's just because it's falling on fresh ears now.
Right.
People that aren't really, they're not, maybe they never heard of us, or maybe they don't know even some of our contemporaries. They don't even know their style. So they're not used to this type of sound coming out of an EDM label. So I really, I think this is a good thing. It's a good partnership with Monstercat. They've showed us nothing but love and support. So
they're great, man. I love their whole team.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's
they're
cool.
really on it too. They're very organized, organized. Like
100%.
On the money. Like they compete with majors when it comes to the like organization. They're up there with like the majors for someone that's just an indie label, but it's like they're big. They're doing big things.
Well, and you can tell they care too. Like they actually. There's some intention behind what they do, which I can't say about every, dance label out there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of the business. It's ran by artists some labels are ran by artists to a certain degree, and those artists are still pursuing their careers. So a lot of the attention is not really on the label in that category, and it's a passive income thing. You got the love of music, but you're a businessman at the end of the day, so you got to handle your business.
Right.
Yeah. Then you have other labels like a Monstercat or, whoever you name that are trying to build a world for the artists, but a world for businesses as well, at least from what I can see.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think they would probably have just as many good things to say about you guys as we're saying about them right now. Like, I feel like them bringing in somebody who does what you guys do, that's a whole new lane for them too. And I feel like it's a super smart decision on their part.
Right.
Like,
we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that. And we talked about like, I mean, our sound has matured, and they're probably believing like their fan base has matured too. And they want some different stuff going on. Everything doesn't have to be, you know, the same stuff that they've done before. So, you know, they're just expanding a little bit. And same with us. We want to expand and get our music out to new listeners. And I think it's just a really good thing. They actually care about the music. They definitely, one thing I love about Monstercat, they trusted us in the creative process. There was no like stepping on toes or like red tape that they put in front of us when it comes to the creative, visually, musically, how we want to roll it out, how everything that goes into the process of doing stuff. They've been really supportive, and they just let us do our thing. This is what we want to do. They're letting us do our thing, and we love that about them. So so far it's been great.
No, that's beautiful, man. And I mean, you kind of talked about it earlier, but do you guys like that position of sort of being the new kid, being the odd one out, like being the one in whatever group you're in that's just like a little harder to fit in, a little harder to categorize?
Maybe that's
I think we've gotten there. Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, maybe that's something right there. Like, you know, that whole being new, like Jared moving from Japan to Oklahoma to Florida and all, being the new kid, and me moving around as much as I did. It's like, we kind of like being the oddball. I think it's a cool thing. I guess for us, it just works, I guess. But yeah, maybe
it does.
Go ahead.
Even I was going to touch on the rave scenes. When we used to go to raves, like I had never been to a rave. When I first started hanging out with Brandon, him and my boy rolled up to me and was like, "We're taking you to a rave." And it was bad back then.
Yeah,
I'm proud of it. I got an Ed Hardy shirt on. Yeah. I got big old jeans. I'm like, oh, all right, so we going to the club. Like, do I need to put on something just in case somebody, you know, because back then somebody steps in the shoes, it's automatic fight. He's like, no, bro, this is a rave. Like, just come on, you'll be fine. So I get there, people are sitting on the floor, the music's different, lights are crazy. I'm like, nobody's fighting in here. This music is crazy. And people are like massaging each other. I was like, this is crazy. This is dope. But again, I look around and it's me, Brandon, and Nick. We're all, Black people. Yep. And, as me and Brandon started progressing through festivals and shows, we're starting to see like, oh, we're kind of the handful is here. So we're like, well, let's embrace this. Let's enjoy, just being unique or different. Let's pull all the cards down.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's always been.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's always been weird with that. Like, especially when we talk about like race and identity, with EDM, it's always been this weird thing because we did our homework and we knew, where it came from. But at the same time, we would be having fun with people and at shows and stuff. And we would still feel like people were treating us like we were strangers, like, or we were like, we didn't really belong there. We're just observing, like, what are you guys doing here? It's like, well, no, we love this music and we did our homework. We know where it comes from. And we just genuinely love it. But it's just a weird thing with us dealing with that.
So, you just said what I was about to say, because we talked about this earlier, especially in America, people aren't doing their homework, right?
Right.
And it's, with the EDM explosion and this huge influx of a new audience who didn't know where the roots of dance music come from, didn't know that it, basically was invented and created by Black people, by marginalized communities. Nobody did that homework, right? And it puts what's happening now in such a weird, not great space, because it's,
right.
Now I'm getting on to a whole nother thing, but it's, all the originators, all the creators, they never get their due. They never get the spoils of like all the work that went into it to get it to what it is now. And then on top of it, it's, I don't know, on top of it, it's like, American pop culture, the whiteification of everything. it doesn't even allow space for new people to get in on it, right? I don't know. It's something more and more that bothers me about participating in this culture and, trying to figure out how to educate people, because nobody wants to be preached to at a rave.
Right. That's not tight at all. They're trying to have fun.
Right.
In the specific cities of Detroit, Chicago, there's still, it's still a culture there for them.
Yes,
like when we did
history.
Was it Movement? One of the
Detroit. Yeah.
Movement.
I'm seeing grown black men crying and like going in on techno and a bunch of different, deep house, tech house, yada, yada, yada. But that's normal for them. And then you go to other places like any other state. A lot of the, it's not just on the other people that aren't of color. It's also in the color community. A lot of the black kids are not exposed to a lot of that music, because it's not, it doesn't connect in that sense until they find something that me and Brandon found when we first heard dance music.
Right.
Something that connects it together.
We always get love from people who's like, wow, I didn't know you guys are black. Like, this is crazy. Like, you guys are black producers. And we're just like, yo, yeah, we've been here. But,
how do you react to that, man? That's a weird backhanded compliment.
It's weird. I mean, but I'm saying like sometimes we'll get it from another, like a black fan, and they give us more love, and they're just like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't know that there is black DJs and electronic musicians being represented, and you guys are doing this. Like, this is incredible. And, it's just weird because it's like there's so many people that are out there that are really talented. They don't get their shine, and they don't get their roses. Like they just they just get overlooked, and they're really, really talented. There's a ton of people out there that are doing their thing. But yeah, sometimes like it's just really tough to educate people. And again, like you said, people don't want to be preached to. So when you say even sometimes if you tweet something or say something, like it's kind of like people don't want to hear that. But I think right now with everything that's like happened, in the last couple of years, especially last year, people are willing to at least talk about it and open up, and we can, listen to other people's stories about what they had to go through. Aluna, she actually talks about this a lot with a lot of her posts, her recent stuff.
Yeah, she's really been amazing.
Yeah, she's been sharing a lot of great stuff about the history of dance music and Black musicians. And she's been very supportive with Black females in the dance music scene. Her and like Unique and a bunch of other people out there. Kalina Sanders, she's been like a really big voice out there too. So yeah, I think these conversations need to like continue, and people can get a better grasp on their history and appreciate it more. And I think these labels and managers and people, they just need to not be afraid of not being able to sell a Black artist. And like they rather go to the easy route and like, oh, well, I can just take this white artist and he can be making this, and we can put this face on top and it'll sell because people react to this. Well, if you're doing that, essentially you're sort of contributing to white supremacy in a way, because you're saying this Eurocentric face or this will be better, will sell more, and you're going away with, you're using it, you're participating in it. But if we say like, hey, we can use, Asian people that want to work in the music space and create great music, and they're talented, there's nothing wrong with an Asian person, being on the front cover of this. This is great. This is great exposure. We need more of that. We need more Latinos. We need more Black people. We need more of all of that. Like let's just, support each other. And I think like we're in a good space right now to have those conversations, and it's good.
Yeah, and I don't think black people are trying to come, at least in the dance community, not trying to come back like, yo, give me my music back. We're just
right.
We just want to get some exposure. Like, hey, there's some artists sprinkled here and there. Come check us out. Look at our stuff.
Right.
And me and Brandon are just leading by example by just doing us. You know what I mean?
Right. Just do yourself.
We naturally are.
Yeah. Well, and you're absolutely right. And, Brandon, what you were just saying about labels or festivals or whoever it is playing it safe and just being like, oh, well, this white face, we can kind of just, it looks like the last white face that was successful. So, that also, your white supremacist point is well taken, but I think also it goes back to that disposable thing we were talking about earlier too. Because if you're just trying to find something that most closely matches what worked for you last time, then what do you expect? It's just going to be, it's going to be copies of the same shit. I can't think of something more boring than that,
Yeah. Like
that's,
I love seeing a lot of different things. Yeah. Like it's weird. So if they want those people that are booking shows and stuff, if they want to stick out and they want people to be like, wow, that was an experience, keep things fresh, keep people around keep booking people that make unique music. They have a unique story. They look and feel unique. Everything about them is them. And we don't have to worry about any of that. It's just, I love hearing a lot of eclectic stuff and, shout out to everyone that's really supporting, these movements and stuff. Like they've been doing a great job.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this has been great, man. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. Before we get out of here, is there anything we didn't cover? Anything else that's on your mind or you want to let people know about?
I just want to say real quick, thank you for having us. I know that's like an end thing, but
no, thank you, man. It's been great.
Very mind-bending conversation for me. I love this.
Oh, 100%, man. Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, and go check out the album. Go check out our latest single, Already Home, just dropped last week, featuring Maurice Moore and Joy Star. And our album With Opened Eyes is going to be out next June, this June coming up. So go check it out. Yeah,
no, I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked to hear everything you guys got ready. What are your plans post album? I'm sure you're going to do some touring once we're able to do that. All of that. Are you already thinking about what comes next?
Yeah. We're going to drop some more music, some singles. And yeah, we got our touring stuff getting lined up. Hopefully by fall, we'll have some sort of leeway with that,
Hell yeah. Well, this has been great, man. Thank you guys for doing it. And yeah, let's do a part 2 sometime.
Hey, sounds good. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Cool. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Appreciate it.
Bye, man. Peace. Bye. That's the show. Shout out to Vindata. Great to have you guys on. You're welcome back anytime. For everybody else out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Don't forget Vindata's new album. In fact, their debut album, With Opened Eyes, is coming in June on Monstercat. They've dropped a couple singles already. You got to go grab them. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can go follow Vindata, keep up to date with everything they're doing, and grab the album when it drops. My name is Willy Joy. You can keep up with me as well if that is your wish. I'm at Willy Joy or at BackToBackPod on all social media. BackToBackPod@gmail.com is the email address. But if you want the fastest connection to me, the easiest way to talk to me, that is just joining the Back-to-Back Discord. The link for that is also in the description of this episode. Come join the Discord. Come share your music if you're a musician. Come share your thoughts if you're a thinker. Come share your memes if you're a memer. All of that is at the Back-to-Back Discord link in description. All right, guys. That's it for this week. Another episode down. That one felt great. I loved that conversation. I enjoy almost all of these episodes, but some of them, you finish and you're like, all right, well, that's probably the last time I'll talk to that person for, at least a year or two. But with Vindata, I felt like we could have kept talking for a few more hours right then and there. And, that's what keeps me doing this show. It's those kind of conversations. So I hope you felt that as well. And if you're still listening right now, you're the real VIP, all my outro warriors. I feel like we got to do something special for all of my outro brothers and sisters. I don't know what it is yet. I'll think about that. But look, if you are still with me, I'm thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're happy and you're healthy and that your family and your loved ones are doing well, that your projects and your goals are moving along, that you are accomplishing them or accomplishing the steps it takes to get to them. Sometimes there's a lot of steps. That's all right. Small steps. Steps that don't even feel like steps. Progress is progress. You got to celebrate the little things. Enjoy the small moments. Listen to a weirdo with a podcast every once in a while and think, well, yeah, that was fun, but I'm glad I'm not quite as weird as he is. Look, what I'm saying is there's a lot to be thankful for out there, and I'm thankful for all of you. That's it for this week. Get out there, get after it, have some fun, take care of yourself. I'll talk to you next week. I love y'all. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.